Hey, tonight is the 10th of November, 2022, and we are honored to have with us David Luria. David is a professional architectural photographer and founder of the award-winning Washington Photo Safari program. This program began in 1999, and since then, David and his 11 fellow instructors have trained an average of 5 photographers every day for 365 days a year for 24 years. Small group safaris have taken place in 186 different locations in 30 cities, 11 states, and 8 countries around the world, including photo cruises in the Caribbean and in Europe. As late as 2019, it was ranked among the top 2 best photography services in the DC area by the readers of DC's city paper. And TripAdvisor now ranks Washington Photo Safari at number 3 out of 91 outdoor activities in DC. David is also the author of a 130-page ebook entitled Washington Photo Safari's Guide for Amateur Photographers, with helpful tips in 29 areas of photography. David was born in Hamburg, Germany, as a Holocaust survivor who barely escaped Nazi Germany with his family on the last ship from Hamburg to New York City in December of 1938. He's raised in New York and has lived in his adopted city of Washington, D.C. for more than 50 years, though he claims to know where all the good pictures are. He's photographed over 3,500 apartment, hotel, and restaurant properties in the DC area, plus dozens of events and conventions. And he's a frequent speaker at local camera clubs, including the National Press Club in Washington, DC. He's a member of the American Society of Media Photographers and the Society of Photographic Educators, and is a founding member of the Association of Independent Architectural Photographers. He's also spent 25 years as a volunteer information specialist with Travelers Aid at Reagan Washington National Airport, and currently volunteers his time as the official photographer for DC Veterans for Statehood and DC Vote. And he's also president of the Brandywine Tenants Association in his Washington, DC apartment building. He holds a political science degree, honors graduate from Amherst College. He's a U.S. Army Cold War veteran, fluent in Spanish, French, German, English, and spent 34 years as a senior executive working for international nonprofit organizations. He studied photography with a protege of famed French photographer Henri Cartier-Bresson at the Parsons School of Design in Paris, France. And he claims his proudest achievements are his 3 children, 4 grandchildren, and the fact that he has enabled tens of thousands of people to experience the joy of photography. Tonight, David Luria.
Thank you. Thank you, John. Good. So would you like me to start?
Yes, sir. It's all yours.
Good, good. Well, welcome everybody, and thank you for coming this evening. Because I live here in DC and I get to see all the different sites, I've made a business out of it by showing other people how to photograph the nation's capital. It's a beautiful city. For all the troubles that it causes and has, it's still a lovely city. It looks like a nation's capital. And don't forget that your taxes and my taxes are paid for all this stuff here. So it really is yours to come down and photograph. So what I want to do this evening is just go over some photo opportunities that exist here. A lot of the things that I'll say, I'm sure most of you know about already, the use of light when you're taking pictures. And we're going to emphasize this on this one: early morning light, golden hour light, and blue hour light. Those are sort of the best times of day to take pictures. Just in terms of definition, the best light on sunrises is usually about 20 minutes before the sun comes up. I'm sure you're aware of that. After the sun comes up, it's too bright. But about 20 minutes before it comes up, you get this very nice deep glow in the sky like this. So that makes very nice pictures. And then you get into daylight. And then you get that in that first hour after the sun comes up, you have what's called the golden hour, at which time the Lincoln Memorial, which is white, turns gold and makes a very nice picture. In the late afternoon, the US Capitol, which is white, turns gold in that 1 hour before the sun sets. So that's when the National Geographic people do all their stuff. I'm sure you've heard this before. Late afternoon, early morning. Don't take pictures in the middle of the day. Go at early morning and late afternoon. The light's much better. Shadows are longer. Light is softer. Everything makes nicer pictures. So This shot here is Arlington Memorial Bridge, shot from the plaza of the Lincoln Memorial, just before sunrise, where you get that very nice deep red glow. And then this is also the Arlington Memorial Bridge, taken from the top of the Washington Monument. The Washington Monument it's like sort of the Empire State Building in New York City, where if you live there, you never go there because you live there, so you don't go there. It's the same thing with the Washington Monument here. People who live here don't go up to the Washington Monument. You can go anytime you want. You do need a time pass, and you can go up in half-hour segments. You can stay as long as you want up there after you've got your pass, but you do have to have a pass. This would be an early morning shot. Let me see, this would be, actually this would be, early morning with sun shining on the Arlington Memorial Bridge. So again, the light is nice and soft and not so harsh. This bridge was inspired by, as many things here in Washington, by France, by Pont-Neuf in Paris. That bridge, which is just a few blocks down from Notre Dame, has these same kinds of arches. And these arches were the inspiration for Arlington Memorial Bridge, which again, just looks much nicer in the early morning light. This one, maybe you're familiar with. This is called the Awakening. This is that great big 52 feet tall statue that used to be at Haynes Point in DC, but they've moved it out to National Harbor. It's a sleeping giant with his arm raised up in the air. He's huge. He's so huge that little kids can sit on the palm of his hand. And makes nice pictures in the sun, in the setting sun, in silhouette like that. That's at National Harbor in Oxon Hill, Maryland. This is just an example of what we call the Blue Hour. It was taken on a cruise ship on its way to the Caribbean. And because you get that very nice, this is just before the sun comes up, you get that nice deep blue sky, which then turns red later on, but the nice deep blue called the Blue Hour. So you have two blue hours, one just after the sun comes up or before the sun comes up, and just after the sun goes down. About 20 minutes after the sun goes down, you get that nice deep blue sky called the Blue Hour. I didn't do this. This is done by Winslow Homer. It's an example of, again, using light, early morning light. It's called Breezing Away. It's one of the famous paintings by Winslow Homer at the National Gallery of Art. And again, very nice use of light coming from the right side, filling up the sail. We do take people into the National Gallery, which is free and open to everybody, and show them beautiful paintings as examples of good composition. Because visual art is all the same, whether it's a painting or a photograph, the principles are all the same. And so you can learn a lot from the paintings in the National Gallery, which is free and open to the public. Go anytime. This is the Capitol reflecting pool, which is right in front of the Capitol, looking down the National Mall in the late afternoon, just after sunset. And as you guys probably often do yourselves, silhouettes in the foreground make pictures more interesting. This picture would not be quite as interesting without the people silhouetted in the foreground. So whenever you can put something or somebody or a bicycle or a Washington Monument or a person or a couple in the foreground as in silhouette, it makes the picture more interesting. This is just after sunset, looking down the National Mall. This is sunset, looking down from World War II towards the Lincoln Memorial. There are times when you do get some spectacular colors behind the Lincoln Memorial, looking towards the west, and you can get shots like that depending on the cloud situation. This is usually, again, about 10 or 15 minutes after the sun goes down. When the sun is on the horizon, it's way too bright. It's the same thing with the sunrise. You don't want to do sunrises with the sun staring you in the face. It's way too bright. So after the sun goes down or before the sun comes up is the best time to do these kinds of pictures. This is a lovely view from a place that a lot of people don't know about and which you really should take advantage of because it is also free. It's called The View, and it is a 34-story office building in Arlington, Virginia, right across the street from the Roslyn Metro exit. You come out of Roslyn Metro, you go across the street, you'll see a great big tall office building with a sign that says "The View." You go in there, you take the elevator up to the 34th floor, and this is the view that you get. It's the same view you get looking out of your airplane window when you fly in from the north into Washington. But of course, you only have it for about 5 or 6 seconds. Here, you take all the time you want to look at this lovely view of the National Mall, Kennedy Center in the left foreground, Roosevelt Bridge in the right foreground, the Washington Monument. And you see it is a whole mile from the Washington Monument to the Capitol. So that distance between the Washington Monument and the Capitol is a mile. That other structure in the back to the left of the Capitol is called the Old Post Office, and it is now a Waldorf Astoria hotel. But the tower is open to the public, and an elevator operated by the National Park Service. You can go up into the tower and take pictures out of those windows. It's the second highest structure in Washington. Cherry blossoms, I'm sure you guys have done a lot of that. Again, a nice silhouette makes pictures a little more interesting. Early morning light is usually best for the cherry blossoms. Sun pouring through the trees like that. So 6 o'clock, 6:15 in the morning, that's usually the best time to do the cherry blossoms. It is crowded, but it's always crowded there. So, but you don't want to miss it just because it's crowded. It's a lovely sight to see. And believe it or not, these are also cherry blossom trees in the fall. And this is another thing that people don't realize, is that the cherry blossom trees themselves in the fall are almost as pretty as they are in the spring. The leaves turn a russet brown and gold, and you get these lovely reflections in the tidal basin. So that's going to be pretty much like next week on the tidal basin. You should go down and see if you can get these colors. Obviously, it depends year to year how bright they are, but it's one of those things, you know, who knew that the cherry blossom trees are also nice in the fall. Here's again cherry blossoms in the foreground, and cherry blossoms with the Washington Monument in the foreground and the sun breaking back over on the horizon. Sometimes when you're doing and you're facing towards the sun like this, you need to use a little bit of flash on either the built-in flash or an off-camera flash at a very low power, just to put a little hint of light on the blossoms. Otherwise, they turn out to be too dark. The view from what's called the Netherlands Carillon. That is a bell tower in Arlington, Virginia, that was given to us by the Netherlands after World War II in gratitude for the fact that we and the Canadians were the first to liberate Holland from Nazi Germany in World War II. So the view from the plaza in front of the Netherlands Carillon is this classic picture of what we call the Big Three: Lincoln, Washington, the Capitol. It's 2 miles from the Lincoln to the Capitol. So that's where you need, you know, F-16, F-11, F-22 in order to get that depth of field. Doesn't look like it's 2 miles, but it is 2 miles from the Lincoln to the Capitol. The Capitol reflecting pool, again, looking down the National Mall. This is when the Capitol was under construction. Excuse me. And the early morning light from across the river. Sometimes you get that very nice pink glow. Here is a view from that the same area there in Arlington, Virginia, looking out over the National Mall, Washington Monument on the left, the National Shrine of Immaculate Conception in the middle, that tall structure, and the old post office building on the right. It's now a Waldorf Astoria hotel. It was a Trump hotel. Now it's Waldorf Astoria hotel. And if you have $600 or $700, you can go and stay there for the night. That elevator, that tower there, you can go up the tower at no charge and take pictures out of those windows. Now, there's no glass in those windows. In order to keep you from falling out of the windows, they have tall, thin wires, and the wires are spaced about 1 inch apart to keep you from falling out. And so you have a nice clean view. However, your lens won't fit in between the wires. So the only way you can get a nice shot from there is with your phone. With that little lens on your phone, stick it in between the wires and get a nice picture. Here again, sunrise from Arlington, looking towards the east in the morning. Don't forget that you always do east-facing buildings in the morning and west-facing buildings in the afternoon. And south-facing buildings you do all day long because the sun is in the southern sky. North-facing buildings are always in shade, like the White House. The north portico of the White House is always in shade. It never has direct sun on it. Looking down the Capitol reflecting pool again, sort of a nice sunset. So it's always the luck of the draw as you go down there and hang out by the Capitol and take a look at the sky and see what's happening and grab a picture. This is another shot from that place called The View, looking down on the Kennedy Center. It's a very nice shot of the Kennedy Center, Capitol in the back there. And this is our DC skyline. As you know, we have limitations on the heights of the buildings here by law. They passed a law in 1912 so that no building would be higher than the Capitol and dwarf the Capitol. So that's why we have a very flat skyline here in DC. And it's punctuated only by the Capitol, the Washington Monument, the old post office, National Cathedral, and the National Shrine, the things that stick up in the sky. The Kennedy Center here, if you look at the top tier, there's that roof line on the top tier of the Kennedy Center. You can go there. It's open to the public. Go there anytime. It's especially nice at sunset. And you can walk around that whole upper tier and photograph the setting sun looking this way towards us here in Arlington, Virginia. Always a good place to go. And all this stuff is free. That's the nice thing about it. Your taxes pay for all this stuff. The windows of Washington National Cathedral. If you haven't been there, you really have to go. It is the 6th largest cathedral in the world. It has magnificent stained glass windows. And in the wintertime, the sun is low in the sky and it projects the light of the windows onto the walls of the cathedral. And you're going to see some examples of that. So again, this is that sort of early morning light that you get at Washington National Cathedral. The walls are gray, but the light from the windows, the stained glass windows, fills those walls with color. You can really only do this in January and February in the winter months when the sun is low enough in the sky so that it projects onto the walls of the cathedral early morning. Same thing here. So that's definitely worth it. Now, they do charge you. They do ask for a $12 donation as you go in there. They need the money to recover from 2011 earthquake. But once you go in, you can go in with a tripod and spend the whole day in the cathedral very quietly, not interfering with anybody worshiping. Take all the pictures you want as long as you're nice and quiet with your tripod. Same thing, projected light. We call that stained glass light. And some of these pictures were done with cell phones, so it's not as though you need a fancy camera to do this kind of stuff, like that. And that. So you see, it's really worth a visit just because it's so pretty. And that. And that. So this is called projected light, light projected by the stained glass windows onto the walls of the cathedral. Again, as I mentioned to John, if you do have questions, please put them in the chat and John can interrupt me and ask the question. I'll be happy to answer. You see the pretty combination of colors that you get there. It's hard to go away after you're in there. So this is called the Washington Harbor. It's at 31st and K Street. K is in King. 31st and K, right on the waterfront. There's a complex there of hotels, condos, restaurants, apartments right there, and a whole bunch of restaurants and bars where people can have a great time. And you have a lovely angle shot on the Kennedy Center from there. The late afternoon, early morning, it's always a nice picture. This is called Washington Harbor, 31st and K Northwest. Key Bridge, early morning light at Key Bridge with people doing the paddling down through the bridge. Again, that early morning, always a nice time to take pictures. And here's some more of that cathedral light. Mount Vernon, probably a lot of you have been there, but it's open all year long. We go there twice a year. We're going again on December 16th because they're doing what they call holiday illuminations. They don't call them fireworks, they call them illuminations. That's what George Washington called them. And what they do is they burst fireworks over the Potomac River in back of the mansion. And so we set up our cameras and our tripods in front of the mansion and get lovely pictures of the mansion with fireworks bursting over it. That's on December 16th. And in late June, they do the same thing around Independence Day. Another shot inside. That tomb on the right is the tomb of Woodrow Wilson. He's the only president buried in Washington, D.C. If you ask the trivia question, who's the only president buried in Washington? A lot of people think John F. Kennedy, but he's buried in Arlington, Virginia. So this is Woodrow Wilson. He was a fellow of the church, that's Episcopalian Church. And so he died and was buried here, well, along with his wife, Edith, buried right there at the cathedral, in the cathedral. Sometimes they take out all the chairs in the cathedral and you get the empty chairs like that. But look at the lovely colors you get. Key Bridge from the other side. So again, I'm looking now from the right side of the picture towards the east, where the sun is coming up in the east and filling up the arches of the Key Bridge with light like that. So as you guys know, you're photographers, it's the play of light that makes good pictures. You just have to look around for it. Another shot from the view in what we call the golden hour, which was the late afternoon, where you get that nice soft golden light on the city. That place is really worth a visit. They do allow tripods there. They don't encourage it, but they do allow tripods. At night, they're only open one night a week, I think, till 8 o'clock. Then you need what's called a lens skirt in order to shoot through glass and not get reflections on the glass. A lens skirt is a piece of plastic with 4 suction cups. You stick your lens through a plastic hole and it blocks out all the light coming from behind. It's a good way to take pictures through glass. This is a absolutely lovely place in upper Northwest DC called Hillwood Museum and Gardens. Again, not too well known. It was the home of Marjorie Merriweather Post, the daughter of the guy who invented Post cereals. So she was very wealthy, and she had this magnificent mansion here in upper Northwest DC, not far from the Van Ness UDC Metro. And one of the things, she has a mansion full of Russian artifacts and a Japanese garden with these little bridges and urns and flowers. It's just lovely. It's $15 to go in there, but again, it's definitely worth it. Hillwood, Hillwood, Hillwood Museum and Gardens. You Google that and you'll find how to get there. The Marine Corps statue, as you know, in Arlington at sunrise when the sun is poking right through the hole there. You probably know the story of this photograph. It was one of the most famous photographs of World War II. It became the iconic photograph of World War II, taken by Joe Rosenthal, AP photographer, who was photographing the guys taking down a smaller flag. And then some other guys came along with a pipe and a bigger flag because the admiral down in the ship in the bay wanted a bigger flag that could be seen all over the island to show that the Marines had taken Mount Suribachi. And so Joe Rosenthal whips around and suddenly he sees these 6 guys holding a metal pipe that they've got a flag attached to and wrestling it into rocks. It's not mud, but a whole pile of rocks. And so it's a lot of strain to do that. And so you can see they all need a lot of help. The guy in back is saying, here guys, let me help you. So it makes a very nice silhouette. And because of the composition, it won a Pulitzer Prize. It's just a lovely piece of composition with sort of framing and the ability to have it in silhouette makes it even better. Here it is at sunrise another time. They made a movie out of the flag raising at Iwo Jima. If you haven't seen it, it's definitely worth it. It's called Flag of Our Fathers, Flags of Our Fathers. It was written by the son of the second guy from the right. The soldier, the second guy from the right here, was a Navy corpsman. He was one of the 6 guys who helped to put the flag up. And his son wrote a book about the 6 guys who raised the flag and what happened to them after they did it. 3 of them died a few days later at Iwo Jima, and the other 3 survived and came back to the States and helped raise money for the war effort. Here it is again in silhouette. So you can really like play with that place there and have a lot of fun. That is from the rooftop terrace of the Kennedy Center. So I showed you that terrace of the Kennedy Center looking towards the west in the afternoon sun. And you do get some very nice sunset shots there of Rosslyn and Arlington, Virginia in the distance. That's a reflection in one of the doors of that rooftop terrace of Rosslyn across the way. The Korean War Veterans Memorial, one of my favorite ones in Washington, has been under reconstruction for 2 or 3 years. They finally finished it, and now it's been rehabbed and it looks very good once again. Very powerful statue, really one of my favorite ones, showing 19 young men in combat, all scared to death of being shot at any moment. So that's what's going on here. 14 Army, 4 Marines, one Air Force observer, and a Navy corpsman. And they are walking, moving quietly, looking left and right, shouting to each other, "You okay? Did you hear something? What was that?" That they're scared of being shot. So this shows really what it's like in combat. Instead of a general on a horse waving his sword, as most wartime statues are, this shows combat from the point of view of the poor schmucks who are down in the field doing the shooting and getting shot. That's what they look like. They are scared. And the veterans who come back, I've met many of them in their 90s now, they come back and they see this and they say, that's what we look like. That's what we felt like. War is hell. And that's what you look like when you're in it. You're scared to death. At any moment, a piece of hot metal can come crashing into your stomach at 700 miles an hour and explode inside your stomach. They didn't have bulletproof vests at the time. So that's what's going on at this statue. It's very well done. This is called the Pool of Remembrance at the Korean War Memorial. It's something new in the fall. You get these nice colors there. One of my favorite cherry trees along the tidal basin, I call it the Lady of the Blossoms tree. She looks a little bit like Eleanor Roosevelt from behind with her arms in the air and that sort of pompadour hairstyle as she looks at the Washington Monument. So she looks a little bit like, hey, I'm holding up all these blossoms, throwing them at the Washington Monument. It makes kind of a nice picture. It's right next to the bookstore down at the FDR Memorial. And there's Abe, which you can do any time of day or night, but it is usually best early morning or at night. In the middle of the day, the light on the statue is kind of bland, but in the early morning, the light is very nice and soft, and you get things like this and convert it to black and white, and it looks like it can be a very nice picture. Martin Luther King in the early morning light, again, because you get that golden hour look of the statue as he looks out across the tidal basin towards the Jefferson Memorial. And here is Arlington Memorial Bridge again, just before sunrise. Just you get that pink hue in the sky there, just before sunrise, and the planes coming in to land down at National Airport. That's taken from the bank of the Potomac on the Washington, D.C. side. And here it is after sunrise, so you get that nice soft golden look. And that tall building that you see, that tallest building in the middle, you see all those, that bank of buildings there, that tall glass one in the middle, that's where the view is. That's the 34-story building I'm talking about. And that top bank of windows is that you're looking out of and getting those nice pictures from there. It's called the view. Looking down the reflecting pool in the early morning, just before sunrise, you get, depending on the weather, sort of a combination of clouds and sun gives you the nicest light usually. And that's another time, sunrise, before the sun comes up. Before the sun comes up, same type of thing. And again, people in silhouette in the foreground always make the picture a little more interesting. That is the Roslyn skyline, and that tall building there on the right is the View, where you do get lovely pictures of the city. This is the view from another building in Arlington. It's called the Doubletree Hilton Hotel, and there is a revolving restaurant there. Maybe you've seen it. It turns slowly. You can have dinner there, and it revolves slowly around. But they turn it off while we go, and I rent the thing for the evening. And we just did a moonrise from there the other night. The full moon came up, and we had 8 or 9 photographers shooting through the glass at the full moon coming up over the city. You have a 180-degree view of the city, looking from south to north. It's a great place to go and take pictures. The windows are angled down so that there's no reflection in the glass. That's St. John's Church. It's called the Church of the Presidents. It is right across the street from the White House. And traditionally, it was the church that presidents would go and pray if they had the time. Abraham Lincoln was known for walking across Lafayette Park with one Secret Service agent sitting in a pew in back, praying for the soldiers in the Civil War, and then walking back to the White House. So you can't do that kind of thing anymore, but that is what he was noted for. And there is the Lincoln Pew in the back is where he used to sit during the Civil War, praying for the safety of the soldiers, the Union Army soldiers. Late afternoon, it faces west, so you want to get the late afternoon sun like that. Again, shooting down National Mall, a telephoto lens that compresses everything together. That is the plaza inside the View, that View office building. So you can see that in the sunset, you get the nice views. It's a 360-degree view of Washington and Virginia and Maryland. And with the sun setting, you get that nice glow like that. Here is the National Mall again, the Smithsonian Castle. There you go. This is the view of the Capitol, taken from the top of the Washington Monument. As you go up the Washington Monument, you can look to the south, west, east, or north, and this is looking to the east in the late afternoon golden hour on the light on the Capitol. Again, it's our taxes that have paid for all this stuff. Why not enjoy it? It's free. You do need a time pass to go up there, but don't hesitate to go just because you think it's going to be crowded and so forth. Don't worry about it. Just go. So here is somebody famous for the use of light, Johannes Vermeer, and you'll see this at the National Gallery of Art. It's one of 4 Vermeer paintings in the world. I think there are only 32 Vermeers in the whole world, and our National Gallery of Art has 4 of them. And this one is called Woman Holding a Balance. And this guy was just a master of the use of light, as you can see coming in from the window on the left, shining on her face and on her hands. You can learn a lot from paintings. And as a matter of fact, you can take your camera and photograph all the paintings you want. There's no restriction on photography in the National Gallery or the National Portrait Gallery, unless there's a sign that says no photography, which would be on loaned exhibits. But for the most part, you can take all the pictures you want. I have a $7 million Renoir in my living room that I stole out of the National Gallery of Art with my nice 50mm f1.8 fast lens, aiming at the painting, lining it all up carefully, watching my white balance, and exactly duplicating the painting so that it looks exactly in the photograph the way it looks on the wall. And then I put a $7 a foot ornate frame around the painting, and it hangs in my living room, and I have a $7 million Renoir in my living room. So, and it's perfectly legal. You take a picture and you walk past the guard whistling, and he says, "Have a nice day, sir." And you just go out with it. You can steal all these beautiful works of art. Why pay for artwork when you can steal it out of the museum? Sunrise at the Vietnam Memorial, again, 40 or 50 minutes before sunrise, when you get that nice pink glow in the sky, shooting down the wall towards the Washington Monument. Always makes a nice picture. And you get this picture also, that lovely reflection of the Washington Monument and the pink sky in the wall itself. And I think that's it. I think that's all the pictures that I have. So basically, I just wanted to show you places, many of which you know about, many of which you might not know about, um, where you can, if you come early in the morning and just wander around the National Mall. And by the way, it is perfectly safe. A lot of people always ask me, is it safe to come out at midnight or 1 in the morning? And the answer is yes. There's always people down on the mall at midnight, 1 in the morning, around the Lincoln. There's always a lot of people down there. It's very well lit. And there have been really no incidents that I have heard of over the last 20 years down on the National Mall. You'd think that there would be, because tourists have the money, and thieves like to go where the money is. And so you'd think that they would go and rob people on the National Mall. They really don't. There are park police there, not very many, but mainly it's just well lit, and there are a lot of people there. So yes, it's probably better to go in pairs, but it's not necessary for men or women to go and hang out on the National Mall with your tripod and take all the pictures you want. Tripods are allowed pretty much every place. They don't encourage them inside the Lincoln because they're worried that the tripod feet might scratch the marble floor. But it sort of depends on the police officer on duty as to whether they enforce that regulation or not. And sometimes you don't need a tripod to do the Lincoln statue, sometimes you do. But for the nighttime shots from the plaza of looking down the reflecting pool, it probably is best to have a tripod. If the cop comes by and asks you to put the tripod away, you put the tripod away, but it's very rare that they make you put away your tripod. You can use the tripod any place on the National Mall. The only place where you have to be careful is in front of the Capitol. The Capitol Police are sensitive, not just because of January 6th, but for many years, ever since 9/11. Tripods can be used as launch pads for rocket-propelled grenade launchers. So you might go down to the Capitol with your camera on a tripod, and suddenly you see a little red dot, laser beam on your jacket, and a cop will come to you. So you see that little red dot on your jacket? That's one of our snipers up there. I need to ask you if you have a permit for your tripod. And you can get a permit, 7:30 to 9:30 on August 12th or whatever you want to do. But without a permit, they really don't like you to have tripods down near the Capitol or inside the Capitol. So you do have to be a little bit careful about that. Any questions?
While I give people a chance to find the mute button and ask their favorite questions, I'm going to ask you two questions.
Yeah.
What is your single favorite spot in the city? Take a photo, regardless of golden hour or not. Where's your single favorite spot and why?
Well, that's so subjective. Everybody's different. I'm an Army veteran myself, so I was not in combat, but I know a lot of people who were. And so I really do like the Korean War Memorial and the faces of the guys at that, 19 guys, looking at each other, shouting to each other, are you okay? Did you hear something? What's that? You want to go this way? You want to turn right? You want to go left? So you can just sort of make up the dialogue of the people. The statues is what they're saying and what they're doing. It's a very realistic, nice tribute to the guys who fought there. As you know, that war was called the Forgotten War. Nobody really liked it very much. There are very few movies about the Korean War. Most of the movies are about World War II and World War I. Not many movies about the Korean War. Why? It was very controversial. The guys didn't know why they were there. Why do we have to be here? Why can't the Koreans do this themselves? Why do I have to come off of my farm in Iowa to protect the South Koreans from the North Koreans? That's their country. That's their business. Why do I have to be here? So if that's just like the Russians in Ukraine, the morale was very bad among the soldiers in the Korean War. There were, in fact, incidents of fragging where they either shot or lobbed grenades at their own officers because of the morale was so low at that time. So again, there was no clear sense of mission or purpose in that war as there was in World War II or maybe World War I, fighting fascism, authoritarianism, all that kind of stuff. But luckily, they did accomplish one thing, and that is they managed to keep the southern half of the country free. So when you go there, you see the very dramatic difference between South Korea and North Korea, especially if you see satellite maps at night. Satellite maps at night, the whole northern part of the peninsula is all dark, and the southern half of the peninsula is all lit up because it's a very highly developed country. So it's very interesting. You will often find veterans there or people from South Korea, university professors. There's always a wreath at the head of the memorial, a wreath, a tribute from a South Korean university to the soldiers who fought in that war. There's always a floral tribute there. And the South Korean ambassador will make a speech there once a year when a lot of the veterans come and thank them for what they did. They said, if you guys hadn't done that, we'd be like North Korea today. So that gives them a sense of, okay, maybe we did in fact accomplish something after all. But in any case, it makes for very good photography because you've got 19 individual soldiers with 19 pictures that you can take in different angles, as well as taking a picture of the whole field.
So I told you I had two questions. And the second question is, what is your most challenging location and why?
Challenging. I guess it just has to do with, is the sun coming up or not? You get down to the Lincoln Memorial, you expect to do a nice rosy red sunrise, and then there's no sun, it's all cloudy. So you're so dependent on Mother Nature as to what kind of thing you're going to get. So as you all know, photographers have to be patient and be willing to come back another time or another day to get good pictures. So I would say, that would be a challenge, making sure that the light is right. And other than that, I don't know many other challenges other than taking pictures of my grandchildren who move fast.
Yeah, they are fast. So looking at the chat, we did get Denise who agreed with you that the Korea Memorials was her favorite. Any other questions from anybody in the group? If you have a question, make sure you hit the mute button so you can talk or type it in chat.
Again, it's one of those towns where you just set your own time. If you take leave, if you're working full time, you just, try to take some time off on an early morning or late afternoon, evening to get the nice light in the city. And it just makes it's just a lot of fun when you get a good image that you've done yourself, where you have crafted the image by shooting it on the manual mode, by getting the exposure just right, and maybe adjusting the Kelvin temperature, the white balance, so that the color of what you see in your camera screen is exactly what you see with your eyes. Not too dark, not too light, not too red, not too green, not too blue, but just exactly matching. So Kelvin temperature is sort of like manual for white balance. It's a more precise way to get accurate color. And of course, you can do that by shooting raw and fixing it later in Photoshop, especially with regard to stained glass windows. The only trouble with that approach is that when you're doing stained glass windows at National Cathedral, all the colors are very unique. And how are you going to remember next week in your house, on your computer, in Photoshop, exactly what color red was that center pane of that stained glass window? Was it orange red? Was it a scarlet red? Was it a deep red? You can make it whatever you want, but if you're being paid by the cathedral, it's sort of good to pretend that you're being paid to do a brochure for the cathedral. You want the color to accurately reflect exactly what you see with your eye, and that's where Kelvin can help you. Do you guys work on Kelvin sometimes?
What is that?
Do you guys work on the Kelvin, use the Kelvin scale for white balance?
Don't know that.
Don't know that. Most of the cameras, most of the high-end cameras do under the white balance setting. I know a lot of people, you like just to shoot an auto white balance and fix it later. But my theory there is that then you are relying on your memory to get the color right when you can't see the object or the thing that you were photographing. You can't see it anymore. You're not there.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Ken.
I'm new to the area, and been down to the mall by driving a car or by metro. How do you get around most of these places? Do you use metro or you use a car?
Okay, that's a very good question. I would recommend coming Sunday. Sunday parking is free all over Washington, D.C. There are many times when I've come up to suburbanites starting to put money in the meters, and I'll say, no, no, don't put any money in. It's all the parking is free all over the city on Sundays, and tomorrow also on holidays like tomorrow. So you can come down and spend and leave your car as long as you want on Constitution Avenue or some of the side streets, and park there. So that's the easiest way. On weekdays, you have to be careful of the signs, and it's going to be a little harder to find a spot. Early morning Sundays is the best time where there's the most places available. Metro is a good way to get around if you want to do that, depending on where you're going. If you're going to the View in Arlington, that's literally across the street from the Roslyn Metro exit. So you can go there and just come out and go right up the View with your tripod.
Any other questions?
You got some in
Yeah,
chat.
I guess got some in chat. I was seeing if anybody else was already off mute. They wanted to ask a question. So one of the questions that we had was how the View that you were talking about in Roslyn, how late is that open? What time does it close?
Good question. It's open until 5 weekdays, and I think till 8 on Mondays. You should Google that. Google that question. What are the hours of the View observation deck on Wilson Boulevard in Arlington? What are the hours? And I think it's pretty much 9 to 5 and 9 to 8 on Mondays. But it varies a little bit, so you have to check it out.
So
Really worth going to.
the other question is, talking about the Kelvin temperature scale, the question is there a basic Kelvin number setting to start with? I suspect I know your answer, but how would you guide a newcomer to the Kelvin scale and setting their camera?
Yeah, if you're doing outdoor pitches, usually 5,600. So Kelvin goes 2,500 is a very low temperature. It's very blue. 10,000 is a very high color temperature. It's very orange. So think high temperature, think fire, which is orange, and low temperature, think ice, which is blue. So that's the range. 2,500 is very blue, 10,000 is very orange, and 5,600 is sort of halfway in between. So a cloudy day, a normal cloudy or sunny day, I think you'll find 5,600 is just about right. But that's the nice thing about Kelvin and shooting on manual. Just play with it until the color of the bushes and the trees and the flowers exactly duplicates what you see with your eye. The pink, the red, the greens, the blues, whatever it is, you want to make sure that the color is accurate. Shooting on auto, which most people tend to do, I don't think is a good idea outdoors. Auto white balance on outdoor pitches tends to be a little bit too cool. We say cool. Cool meaning too blue. It tends to make skin tones a little purpley looking instead of a nice warm skin tone. So outdoor pitches are best done either on cloudy white balance or 5,600 or 6,000 or 5,000 Kelvin. But the point is, you learn that by doing it and by screwing up. Take pictures at all different temperatures and see what you get. And that's how you learn. Go inside your closet in your home, turn on the overhead light inside your closet. The only source of light would be that light bulb, which is a tungsten light bulb. And that's probably going to be about 2,700 Kelvin. I don't know, but you should do it and see. And that way you get to know Kelvin. Go into the bathroom and turn on the light. See what kind, if you have a fluorescent light in there, it's a different color temperature. If you have light bulbs in there, it's a different color temperature. So that's what you want to learn by doing it. Just take the pictures and look at them, and you'll get to know Kelvin the way you know Fahrenheit. We know Fahrenheit through our skin. We feel it feels like 70 degrees in here. So we feel that. You don't see it, you can't see it, you feel it. With Kelvin, you can see color temperature and get to know it. And you can impress your friends by going into their homes and saying, Mary, I love what you guys have done with your living room. I see you keeping it at 4,500. And she'll say, huh, what are you talking about? Oh yeah, 4,500 Kelvin, looks just right. Kelvin, who's he? So the idea is to understand color temperature so that you know exactly what it does and how you can make the picture come out exactly right.
When you're talking about you're in the field and you're setting the white balance on the Kelvin scale, and most cameras you have to dig into it and actually there's a setting, but you can get to it and actually set a specific Kelvin temperature. So are you, when you say, look and see what looks right, are you talking about like a live view, or are you talking about, take the picture and look at a replay? Or, what's your preferred
Well, it
method when you're
depends on the model, John. So with your mirrorless cameras, you can see it before you take it. That's the nice thing about mirrorless. You see exactly what you're going to get before you push the button. That's what's so nice about mirrorless cameras. With DSLRs, you can't see it, but you can take the picture and then look at it and see if you got it right. If not, change the white balance. So live view on the DSLRs is not always the way it's going to come out actually on the screen. In mirrorless cameras, it is, but not with DSLRs.
okay? Any other questions from anybody?
I'd say that light bulbs often show the Kelvin temperature now.
They
Now that
do.
we're going through all this, and you can learn that just by going through a Home Depot.
Exactly. And so that is something that you should do. And so that way you get to know Kelvin temperatures. And there's no need to do any of this. I mean, it sounds as though we're being a little anal here, but really it gives you the most accurate color. It's not good when you're in a hurry. But when you're doing landscapes and interior and architecture, stained glass windows, you want to get the color right. And you're not in any hurry. Just take a picture until you get it right. The answer to most questions is, what settings do I put the camera on? The answer to the question is, take the picture. Look at the picture. That's the answer.
Okay.
Too dark, too light, wrong color, right color. Look at the picture.
All right. Any other questions for David?
All right, how do we find out about your tours?
Oh yeah, it's called WashingtonPhotoSafari.com. WashingtonPhotoSafari.com, all one word. And we do 3 or 4 things every week. We're doing the monuments at night, Saturday night, for example, at the Lincoln Memorial. We're doing Mount Vernon fireworks on December 16th. So there's a whole bunch of different things that we're doing, and you'll see it on the website, WashingtonPhotoSafari.com, and you can register right there. It tells you a description of the safari and then lets you register. Most of them are in the neighborhood of $100 or less. Half day, they're usually half day, 2 to 3 hours. Some of them are a full day. Some of the nature ones are a full day at Conowingo Dam or Bombay Hook and places like that. There's usually a full day. Those are close to $200, but the half day ones are usually about $99.
And they are, most of these appear to be on your website. So
Yes, they all are on the website. Yeah.
Yep. Okay. So Tim, I think he just answered your question. Hope so. Any other questions for David? Right. Well, David, really appreciate you bringing your photos and your decades of experience and taking photos in the DC area. Some wonderful shots, great spots and locations, and some great advice as well. So David, thank you very much for coming out and talking to us tonight. And we'll talk to you next time.
All right, John. I will send you a Flickr site that has all these pictures on it, so you can share that with your club members.
Excellent. Excellent. We will absolutely do that. All right. So I'm going to click stop recording.